The wind was cold on the ridge, and the sky was dark with heavy clouds moving fast like they were in a hurry to leave this place behind and never return. Elena sat still behind a pile of rocks, her hands holding the rifle tight, her eyes scanning the ground below, where the patrol team moved through the trees. She was the quiet one, always quiet, never speaking, unless someone asked her something, and even then she would only say what was needed. The others did not notice her much. They called her backup, just backup, that was all. She knew her job: stay on the ridge, watch the team, give support if needed, but only if needed. No one thought she would ever be more than that, just a pair of eyes and a steady hand on the high ground. But tonight felt different, and even Elena could feel it in her chest, like something was waiting just out of sight, like the air itself was holding its breath. She looked through the scope again, moving slowly, checking the trees, checking the rocks, listening to the sound of the forest. Owls called in the distance, wind moved the leaves, and the soft crunch of boots on dirt came through her earpiece from the patrol below. The leader of the patrol, Sergeant Knox, was speaking quietly, giving orders, telling the team to move left, watch the edge, stay alert. But even his voice sounded unsure tonight, like he was trying to keep everyone calm, including himself. Elena shifted her position just a little, her knees starting to ache from sitting so long. But she didn't complain. She never complained. She had been trained for this, trained to be still, trained to wait, and when the time came, trained to act fast and with no fear. But this was not training, this was real, and that made everything feel heavier, like the rifle in her hands, the gear on her back, the thoughts in her mind. She remembered her first mission, how scared she had been, how her hands shook, and how she had made it through by staying quiet and doing what she was told. Now here she was again on another mission, high above her team, with nothing but the night and her own breath to keep her company. The radio crackled and she heard someone laugh below, maybe Garcia or Webb. They were always joking, always trying to keep things light. Elena didn't laugh, she just listened, her eyes never leaving the ground below. Then something caught her attention, a flicker in the dark, not close, not far, but just enough to make her heart skip. She focused her scope toward the movement, but saw nothing now, just trees and shadows. Maybe it was nothing, maybe just an animal, maybe just wind. But her gut said different, and Elena always listened to her gut. She clicked the radio twice, short, soft taps, a signal to alert without words. No one below noticed, or maybe they did, and just ignored it, thinking she was being too careful again. She had done that before, given a warning, when there was no danger at all, and they had teased her for days after. Now she didn't want to be wrong again, didn't want to cry wolf and lose what little trust they had in her. Still her eyes stayed on the spot where the flicker had been, and she kept watching, waiting, hoping she was wrong, but knowing deep down that she wasn't. The wind grew stronger and the sky darker, and somewhere far off thunder rumbled low and deep, like the earth itself was groaning. Elena felt the chill crawl up her spine, not from the cold, but from the feeling that something was coming, something bad. Below, the patrol kept moving, their lights low, their voices low. No one seemed to notice the way the night had changed. She thought about saying something again, maybe a quiet warning, maybe just a suggestion to slow down, but she didn't. Not yet. She shifted again, trying to stay comfortable, without making noise, her fingers adjusting the scope, her eyes scanning again and again. And then she saw it, a shape in the trees, low to the ground, unmoving, like it was waiting. She couldn't tell what it was, not clearly, but it didn't belong there, and it wasn't part of the team. Her mouth went dry, and her heart began to pound, louder than the wind, louder than the storm. She knew what she saw, she knew it in her bones, but still she hesitated, afraid to speak, afraid to be wrong, afraid to be right. She whispered into the mic, ridge, support, eyes on unknown movement, 2 o'clock, near tree line. Her voice was calm, but inside she was shaking. No one answered, not right away. Then Sergeant Knox replied, copy, keep watching, stay hidden, no action unless confirmed. Elena nodded, even though no one could see her. She stayed still, eyes locked on the trees, breathing slow and careful. She counted the seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the shape moved again, and this time she was sure. It was not an animal. It was not the wind. It was someone watching the patrol from the trees. And Elena was the only one who had seen it. The only one who could stop what was about to happen. She was just backup, just the quiet one on the ridge. But not tonight. Not this time. The forest was quiet too, quiet the kind of quiet that made the hairs on Elena's neck stand up, the kind of quiet that came before something terrible. She stayed low on the ridge, her eyes locked through the scope, not blinking, not breathing, too deep, afraid that even her breath might give away her position. The shape below had moved again, slow, careful, almost like it knew it was being watched, almost like it was hunting. Elena followed it with her scope, still unsure what it was, but knowing it was not part of her team, not friendly, not safe. She whispered into the radio again, contact, possible hostile movement, 2 o'clock, behind fallen log, about 40 meters from patrol. Still her voice stayed calm, even though her heart was beating like a drum in her chest. Sergeant Knox answered again, short and steady, copy, eyes open, team, hold formation ridge, confirm visual before engagement. She hated that word confirm because she already knew, but it meant she had to wait for it to move again, wait for proof, wait for something to go wrong. She kept watching the log, kept watching the shadows, and then just for a second she saw the glint of something metal, maybe a scope, maybe a weapon. Her finger moved to the trigger slowly, carefully, ready, if it made one wrong move, ready to fire, ready to end it before it could start. But then another sound came through her earpiece, a voice light and joking, "Hey Ridge, you seeing any squirrels up there, or just staring at leaves?" It was Garcia laughing, like always, making jokes in the dark. Elena didn't answer. She didn't have time for jokes, not now, not when she was watching a silent threat waiting to strike. She wanted to scream at them, to stop moving, to be quiet, to listen, but she could not yet, not without confirmation. Below, the patrol moved forward a few steps, their lights sweeping across the forest floor, bouncing off branches and stones. They were close, too close, and the thing behind the log didn't move, not yet, just watched. Elena zoomed in as far as her scope allowed, her breath shallow, her eyes wide. And then she saw a face, not fully, but enough eyes behind a mask, cold and still, a rifle pressed close against the log, pointed not up, but straight at the team. Her body went cold. This was real. This was now. She clicked the mic again, enemy, confirmed, weapon visible, ready to fire, permission to engage. Knox answered quickly and sharp, engage Ridge, take the shot now. She lined up the scope, held her breath, and just as her fingers squeezed the trigger, another sound cracked through the night, not hers, but someone else's. A gunshot, loud and fast, echoed through the valley. Someone screamed. Elena fired a half-second later, her shot clean, and true, the figure behind the log dropping like a puppet with strings cut. But it was too late, someone had been hit. She scanned the team, saw chaos, saw movement, someone down, Garcia, maybe, she couldn't tell, too much shouting, too many lights, too much fear. Elena's hands moved fast, chambering another round, checking the tree line, her voice calm, over the radio, contact neutralized, unknown number, remain on overwatch, continue sweep, proceed with caution. She didn't wait for a reply. She kept scanning, kept breathing, tried to stay focused, even though her stomach felt like it was turning inside out. This was her fault. She had waited too long. She had seen the danger, and still waited, still doubted herself, still let the enemy fire first. She looked down again, saw the team, dragging the wounded member behind cover, Sergeant Knox barking orders, Webb checking vitals, hands covered in blood. Elena wanted to close her eyes, but she could not now, not ever again. She moved her scope wider, checking every shadow, every bush, every inch of ground around the team. Nothing else moved. But that didn't mean they were safe. Not yet. And inside her heart a storm was growing, not from fear, but from something else. Anger. Not at the team, not at the enemy, but at herself. She had let them get hurt. Because she had been afraid of being wrong. Because she had been afraid of speaking too soon. Because she was just backup. Just the quiet one on the ridge. But not anymore. She knew what she saw, she knew how to protect them, and from now on she would act first and ask later. The storm inside her was rising, but her hands stayed steady, her eyes stayed sharp. She whispered into the radio again, Ridge, secure, holding position, scanning, for second wave, eyes open, weapons hot. This time no one laughed, no one joked, no one called her back up. And somewhere deep inside, Elena felt something shift. Not a loud change, but a quiet one, like a key turning inside a locked door. Because now they knew what she could do. And so did she. The forest did not stay quiet for long. The silence broke open like glass shattering, as more gunfire ripped through the trees, loud, fast, and wild. Elena ducked low behind her cover, her rifle tight in her hands, her breath sharp and shallow, her ears ringing from the sudden noise. She had hoped it was over, after that one shot hoped it was just one enemy watching the patrol from the shadows. But now she knew she had been wrong again. This was not just one, this was more, this was a full ambush. And it had only just begun. Below the ridge the team scrambled for cover, shouting over each other, trying to find the source of the attack bullets, flying past them, snapping through branches and dirt. She could see Webb dragging Garcia behind a fallen log, the blood dark on his sleeve, but Garcia was still moving, still alive. Sergeant Knox was shouting into the radio, calling for backup, calling for help, calling for anything that could get them out of this mess. Elena forced herself to move, forced herself to rise above the fear inside her and lift her rifle once more. She scanned the trees, fast, too fast, trying to find where the shots were coming from, but they were everywhere, all around them. Her heart was pounding, her chest tight, her mouth dry. She spotted one figure moving between the trees, dark clothes, face covered, rifle up, and aimed at Knox. She fired one shot clean, and fast the figure dropped without a sound. She didn't have time to think, didn't have time to feel, just loaded another round and searched again. This was war, and there was no time for anything else. She heard someone scream again, another shot fired, close this time, too close. Her radio crackled again. Ridge, we are pinned down, multiple hostiles. We cannot move, need cover fire, need it now. Elena replied without hesitation, copy, hold position, cover fire, incoming, stay low. She took a deep breath, pushed all her fear to the side, and began to fire one shot, two shots, three each one, aimed, each one controlled. The team below began to move slowly, carefully, using her fire as a shield, crawling from one rock to another, inch by inch. The wind blew through the trees, but Elena didn't feel it, not anymore. Her body was hot with focus, her hands moving like they had a mind of their own. Then she saw something that made her blood run cold, a flash of light in the trees, not gunfire, but glass, a scope, and behind it another sniper. He was not aiming at her, he was aiming at Webb, who was still trying to help Garcia. Elena knew she only had seconds. She adjusted her aim, pulled back the trigger, and fired. The shot was sharp and strong, and she saw the figure fall back from the tree, disappearing into the dark below. Then silence again for a moment, a single moment, like the world had paused. Then Sergeant Knox's voice came through the radio, clear and low, Ridge, sniper down, repeat, sniper down, do you confirm? Elena whispered back, confirm, target neutralized, area still not secure, scanning now. She didn't relax, not yet, didn't even blink. She had no idea how many enemies there were or where they came from. But one thing was clear, they had planned this, they had waited for the right time, and now they were trying to take out the whole team. And if Elena hadn't been watching, if she hadn't taken that shot, the sniper would have ended it. Her shot had changed everything, it had saved them. Still, the battle was not over, and Elena knew it. She could feel it in the air, the way the leaves trembled, the way the light shifted in the trees. More were coming, she just didn't know from where. Her voice stayed calm in the radio, Ridge, to patrol, regroup near southern rocks. I will provide overwatch, follow path marked with green flare, do not split. Knox answered, copy, moving now, Ridge, you saved us back there. Elena didn't reply, not because she didn't want to, but because she couldn't find the words. Her hands were shaking now, only a little, but enough to know the adrenaline was fading. She looked down at the team as they began to move again, slowly, with caution, trusting her eyes, trusting her voice. And inside her something changed again, like a door opening wide. They were no longer guessing. If she was ready, no longer calling her, just back up. Now she was the reason they were alive. Now she was the one they looked to from the ground below. And she knew that this was only the beginning. Because all hell had broken loose. And she was still on the ridge, watching, waiting, protecting. The sky above the ridge was turning dark blue, the storm clouds rolling in heavier, now lightning flashing behind the trees, with no thunder, yet just light with no sound, like the sky was holding back its anger just for a little longer. Elena wiped sweat from her face, her eyes still locked on the tree line, her fingers wrapped tight around the rifle, still ready, still watching, still waiting for whatever came next. Below her the patrol moved slowly, crawling toward the southern rocks. Just like she told them, Garcia was still alive, but barely, his head resting against Webb's arm, his lips moving, but no one could hear what he said. Knox kept looking up toward the ridge, toward Elena, his voice in the radio soft. But strong ridge status. Do you see anything else, anything moving, anything at all? Elena replied negative, all clear for now. But I do not trust this quiet, not yet, not until we are out. Her voice sounded different to her own ears, not like before, not shaky, not soft, but steady like stone, like someone who had done this before, someone who knew what to do even if her hands still trembled behind the scope. She scanned the trees again, up and down, side to side, her heart slow, now her mind sharp. Then something moved far, left, almost out of range, just a flicker between the trees, like a shadow slipping through cracks. She aimed fast, but careful, her breath caught in her chest, her eye locked into the scope. And there it was, a second team, not one, not two, but maybe 5, maybe 6, moving low, fast, and silent, not running, not loud, but like ghosts through the trees, heading straight toward the team from the flank. She spoke quick into the radio contact, left flank 6 hostiles, moving fast, intercepting patrol, prepare for engagement now. Knox replied, fast copy, eyes up team, we have more incoming, stay low, return fire, only on mark ridge, you are green light. Green light meant go, green light meant she had permission to shoot now, no more waiting, no more confirming, just trust and fire. She breathed in deep and let the air fill her lungs, then let it go slow, slow, as her finger pressed the trigger. The first shot echoed across the valley, loud and sharp, bouncing off the rocks like thunder, and then the second, and the third, each one placed with care, each one meant to stop what was coming. And they did. The first hostile dropped hard into the leaves, the second twisted, and fell, the others scattered, ducking behind trees. But it was too late now, they had been seen. The patrol took positions quickly, using cover, firing back, and following her lead, every move timed with her shots, every breath lined with her voice in the radio. It was like they had trained for this, like they had always trusted her even when they never did before. Elena moved fast, reloading, checking targets, moving her aim like water, flowing from one threat to the next, no panic, no fear, just focus, just instinct. One of the enemies tried to run wide circle behind the patrol. Elena saw it before anyone else, her scope locking in, her breath stopping for just a second. And then she took the shot. A clean hit. The kind of shot you only take once and never forget. The kind of shot that saves lives. Below her, Knox looked up again, saw the enemy fall, saw the path clear again. His voice came over the radio loud enough for all of them to hear, ridge, shot confirmed, direct hit, you just saved the entire team. Elena said nothing, she couldn't speak, not because she didn't want to, but because something inside her chest was burning, not with fear, but with something else, something bright and strong. For the first time she felt it, not just the weight of the rifle, not just the pressure of the mission, but the truth. She had saved them. Her one shot had stopped the flank, had given the team time to move, had kept them alive when death was already knocking. She looked through the scope again, searching for more enemies, but none came, not yet, maybe not ever. The valley was quiet again, not silent, just quiet, filled with the soft crackle of radio voices and the rustle of wind through leaves. Her ears rang from the noise, but inside she felt calm, her hands steady, her breath smooth. The others were regrouping, now checking wounds, counting heads, preparing to move out. And she was still on the ridge, still watching, still guarding. No one called her back up now. No one asked if she was ready. They already knew, because her shot had spoken for her. Louder than any word, stronger than any rank. And across the valley her voice echoed, not with sound but with action, with purpose, with power. She stayed still behind her rifle, eyes on the trees, heart full of fire. Because this mission was not over. And she was not done. Not yet. The trees were quiet again, but not in a peaceful way, more like the world was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Elena stayed low behind her cover, her eyes sweeping the ground below her, hands tight on her rifle, every muscle in her body alert and ready. She could feel it in the air, something was wrong, something was not finished, not yet. The patrol had moved forward, taking new cover near the rocks, checking their gear, checking Garcia, who was still bleeding but still alive. Knox spoke into the radio, ridge, Sitrep area looks clear, but I do not trust this silence, can you confirm all clear? Elena wanted to say yes, she wanted to say it was over, that the danger had passed, that they were safe. But her gut told her no. Her gut told her that something was coming, something bigger, something worse. She scanned the edge of the tree line again, slow and steady eyes locked through the scope, and then she saw them. Figures in the dark, moving low, fast, too organized to be lost, too close to be passing by. She counted them 5, 6, 7, at least, maybe more, spread out, trying to stay hidden, but not from her, not from the ridge. Her voice came through the radio, fast and sharp: contact, East Ridge, multiple hostiles, moving direct toward Overwatch position, not targeting patrol, heading for me. Repeat, they are coming for the ridge. There was a pause, then Knox replied, Ridge, pull back now, we will cover your exit. Get out of there, do not hold your position alone. But she knew she could not leave, not now, not with the enemy moving up the hill, not with the patrol still in danger. If she left the high ground, they would lose sight, lose cover, lose control. She spoke calm and sure, negative, holding Ridge. I can slow them down, just stay low and be ready. Knox tried again, Ridge, that is a direct order, fall back. Now regroup with us, we will handle the rest. But Elena was already moving, already checking her rifle, already setting up her last line of defense. She whispered back softly into the mic, I am the high ground, I stay. Then she went quiet. She moved behind a thicker stone wall near the edge of the ridge, laying out her last few rounds, her extra magazine, her small knife, just in case. Her heart was racing now, but not with fear, with something else, something stronger. She was not just backup, not anymore. She was the wall between the patrol and the enemy, and she was not going to break. Then the first enemy appeared just over the hill, climbing, carefully scanning the trees, not expecting her, not expecting anyone to be waiting. Elena took the shot fast, clean, the figure dropped backward without a sound. But now the others knew, and they came fast, bullets, flying, trees, splintering, voices, shouting in a language she did not understand. She rolled to her left, fired again, hit one in the chest, reloaded, fired again, missed, but just barely. The rocks around her exploded with bullets, dust flying in her eyes, dirt in her mouth, but she stayed low, stayed moving, kept firing. One against many, and yet she was not afraid. She remembered her brother's voice, in her mind strong and warm, you do not run, when they come you stand, you hold your ground. She fired again, another one fell, and another one stopped behind a tree, firing wild, but missing. She heard someone climbing up behind her, fast, too close, turned, and saw a man just feet away, raising his weapon. She didn't think, she just grabbed the knife and threw it, hitting him in the side, just long enough to grab her sidearm and finish it. Her side was bleeding now, scratched by a bullet or maybe a piece of rock. She didn't know, she didn't care. Still she fired, still she moved, still she held the ridge. One of them got closer than the rest. She could see his eyes now sharp and full of hate. He charged up the rocks, yelling something loud and angry. Elena stood up just for a second, aimed, and fired the shot, echoing like thunder across the valley. Then there was silence again, the kind that means it's over, the kind that feels heavy, like a weight has been lifted, but also left something behind. Elena dropped to her knees, breathing hard, her hands shaking, her rifle smoking. She looked down at the patrol. They were watching her. No one moved, no one spoke. Then Knox's voice came through the radio, low and full of, Ridge, are you still standing? Elena answered quietly, still here. She looked around at the ridge, at the bodies, at the smoke rising in the distance, and she knew it was not luck. She had stood alone and held the line. One against many. And she had won. Because sometimes being quiet is not weakness. Sometimes it is strength waiting to rise. Smoke still rose from the trees below the ridge, drifting like ghosts through the branches, the smell of fire and gunpowder in the air, thick and sharp like the memory of everything that had just happened. Elena sat behind a rock, her legs tired, her hands dirty, her breath steady, but slow, her rifle across her lap, as she looked down at the ground, trying to take it all in. The ridge was quiet now, no voices, no bullets, no movement, just the soft whisper of wind pushing through the grass, and the sound of her own heartbeat finally beginning to slow. She touched the cut on her side, winced, but did not cry. The pain was real, but distant, like her body knew she could not rest, yet not until the team was safe, not until they were all out. Her radio crackled softly, then Sergeant Knox's voice came through, calm, but full of something else, now not just command, but respect. Ridge team is safe, all members accounted. We are heading to evac site ETA 15. Can you walk? Can you meet us? Elena took a deep breath, stood up slow and stiff, but still standing, still strong. She pressed the button on her radio and spoke quietly, on my way. She looked out across the valley one last time, then turned and began to move down the path, her boots sliding on loose dirt, her steps heavy, but sure. With each step the weight on her back felt a little lighter, not because her gear was gone, but because the doubt was gone. No more questions. No more silence. No more being just back up. As she walked toward the team, the trees opened up, and she saw them waiting near the rocks, some sitting, some standing, all watching her as she came down the hill. Garcia sat against a tree wrapped in bandages, pale, but alive. He raised a shaky hand and gave her a tired smile. Elena smiled back, just a little, enough to show she was glad he made it. Webb walked up first, quiet like always, but this time with something in his eyes, something that said he saw her different now, not like before, not like the quiet one, but like someone who had saved them all. Then Knox stepped forward, and for a moment no one spoke, just stood there in the space between fear and relief, between what had happened and what would never be forgotten. Finally he said, "Ridge, you held that line alone. You stopped the whole second wave by yourself. I don't know how you did it, but we are alive because of you." Elena looked at him, her face calm, her voice steady. "I just did my job." But Knox shook his head. "No, you did more than that. You became something else up there. You became the shield between us and death, and we will not forget it." The evac arrived minutes later, a loud helicopter cutting through the sky, wind whipping around them as dust rose and voices shouted over the roar. Elena helped lift Garcia onto the stretcher, helped Webb secure the gear, helped Knox climb aboard, and when it was her turn she paused for 1 second, looking back up at the ridge that had been her battlefield. She would never forget it, the rocks, the smoke, the shots, the moment everything changed. Then she climbed in, and the door closed behind her. Back at base the sky was soft with early morning light, the kind that comes after a long night, the kind that feels like a promise. They walked through the gates, tired, wounded, quiet, but alive. Other soldiers stopped and stared. Whispers followed them, words like, "Did you hear what happened on the ridge?" And she took them all down by herself, and that shot saved the whole team. Elena said nothing, just kept walking, eyes forward, heart still steady. Later that day someone called her name. She turned and saw a group near the wall, the one where names were carved, names of those who had done more, names of those who had stood when others could not. Knox was there with a small tool in his hand, and beside him a space on the wall. He nodded at her once, then began to carve. Letter by letter her name appeared, not as backup, not as just support, but as the one who stood alone and never fell. Elena did not cry, she did not smile, she just stood there quiet as always, but something inside her glowed like fire, like pride, like peace. She had gone up the ridge as the quiet one, but she came down a legend.